where an unlikely populist candidate from New York wins the 1900 presidential election. Hello, my name's Gavin, this is Genre Books, and I've got to start thinking about October. My head is still full of Shakespeare, but let's put ourselves 250 years into the future from 1600 and start thinking about Victober, which is the main event for October. I think it's one of the longest running events on Booktube, but it'll be the first time I've participated. So I've got a bit of a list for that. But it's not the only thing I want to be doing in October. So here is the typically ambitious list of books. The first book we'll find out in just a moment. I'm still reading my current pick from the tote bag of Mild Peril, which is A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. I will have finished this by the weekend, so it's time to pick a new book. This is excellent, and I will probably be talking about this in due course. But here is the tote bag of Mild Peril. It's a tote bag from Hay on Wye, and this is Richard Booth, the King of Hay. On many slips of paper in here are the names of every book I have on the shelves behind me, plus about 100 random literary genres and subgenres. So I will be reading a book, or a book in a particular genre, or just about the genre. And the next book is Larry Niven, The Long Arm of Gil Hamilton, or Gil Hamilton, I don't know. But what better way to start a month of Victorian reading than with 1970s sci-fi. Victober is a hosted event, hosted by, I will put them down below, Katie at Books and Things, Blatantly Bookish, Scallydandling About the Book, and Kate Howell Reads. Challenge number 1, Kate's challenge: read a book where religion is a component. And for this I'm dipping back into my Edward Bulwer-Lytton. Having enjoyed The Coming Race earlier this year, I want a second bite of that cherry. And I'm going to read Zanoni. The main character is a Rosicrucian, I believe, or the book is about Rosicrucianism. And it also had a large influence on the foundation of Theosophy. So I think there's probably enough religion bound up with that one book. Challenge number 2, Katie's challenge, is read a book that plays with form in some way or other. And for this is a rare reread for me, but it's done with a few things in mind. I want to reread it. My daughter is also going to be studying it shortly at A-level, so it might be good to have a fresh idea of the text, and that's Wuthering Heights. Challenge number 3, and I'm doing something a little bit cheeky here because this is doubling up. It's read a book that was first published serially. Now there is a bonus event challenge in Victober, and that is to read something by Wilkie Collins or Arthur Conan Doyle. This challenge in honour of 2 booktubers who we have lost this year, Jennifer Brooks and Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. So I'm going to start reading No Name by Wilkie Collins. I say start reading it because I'm not going to finish it this month. I am going to read it like a Victorian. It first came out in, I think it was the Dickens periodical, All the Year Round, I think the name of the periodical was. And it was published in 40 instalments. So I will be reading weekly the instalments of No Name. I'm going to have a hunt down of exactly which chapters were published which week, so I follow over the course of 40 or 41 weeks roughly the experience of someone who is reading No Name when it first came out. Challenge number 4, Roz's challenge: experience a Victorian play, experience Victorian drama, read a play or watch a play. Well, I'm going to read a play, and the play I'm going to read is Hunchback by James Sheridan Knowles, who was very popular at the time, not spoken about so much these days. Something that's going to be getting a lot of use during October is my dog-eared Kindle. I'm not even sure which model Kindle this is, but it works for me. It's probably an early one. It doesn't do nice pictures or anything, just text. But a lot of the text that I'm going to be reading are on Gutenberg, Project Gutenberg, and I might be coming up with a list of Gutenberg suggestions for everyone as well. I'll see if I get the chance to have a look through some of the lesser perused shelves of Project Gutenberg. I don't want to be suggesting to you books by Wilkie Collins or Dickens or George Eliot or people you would expect to see on a Victorian reading list. October this year is also a time for politics, and my channel is not going to be immune to that. Now, I won't be giving my political opinions, although some people may intuit them. What I am going to do, however, is read Sybil by Benjamin Disraeli, so a novel by a British Prime Minister. That's political enough. I'm also going to be reading a trio of books from Ingersoll Lockwood. Now, I've not read this before, but one of them is actually sort of going to help with the other project that I'm just beginning, which is talking about underground worlds, lost civilizations, etc. Ingersoll Lockwood wrote 2 books: The Adventures of Baron Trump and his little dog Bolger, and Baron Trump's Marvellous Underground Journey. Ingersoll Lockwood also wrote a book called 1900 or The Last President, where an unlikely populist candidate from New York wins the 1900 presidential election, and what comes about from that. During September, one of the books I read, to go with Shake-Tember, was No Bed for Bacon by Carol Brahms and S.J. Simon, which is a comedy, and a very good one, about the Elizabethan era and Elizabethan dramatists and royalty. This coming month, I'm going to read Don't, Mr. Disraeli, also by Carol Brahms and S.J. Simon, a book that came out before No Bed for Bacon, but dealing with Victorian novelists, literature, tropes. If it's anything like No Bed for Bacon, it's going to be good fun. So I'm going to enjoy reading this probably towards the end of the month, after I have been steeping myself in Victorian literature. Other Victorian books are going to include The Doctor's Wife by M.E. Braddon, which is the Victober group read. After London by Richard Jefferies, which is post-apocalyptic Victorian literature. King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard. Technically a reread, but I think I read a abridged version of it when I was 8 or 9 years old, so I'm not entirely sure that counts. I'll also be reading A Romance of Two Worlds by Mary Corelli. I'll also be reading, if I get the time, The Lost Continent by C.J. Cutler-Hine, which just makes the cut for Victorian literature, being published in 1899. Finally, a clutch of books by another Victorian writer, and one who I read, I think it was last year, my first experience of George MacDonald. I read Lilith. This year I'm going back to MacDonald because I found him fascinating, and I'm starting with something perhaps more on the juvenile side, but The Princess and the Goblin and The Princess and Curdie. I thought this was an excellent looking edition of a couple of his more fairy tale like excursions. This is from 1970, but so it looks a little bit older than it actually is, but looks very smart indeed. And finishing up with two other George MacDonald books, Fantastes, a novel by George MacDonald, and Evermore, a collection of 3 of his tales. Both of those in Ballantine adult fantasy. So my favourite book collection, my favourite covers. But there we have 15, 16 titles, so enough, more than enough, I would suspect, to keep me going for the month. I did have to scrub some other things off the list, so no Savrola by Winston Churchill, which would have counted as another Victorian publication and another British Prime Minister. No The World's End by William Morris, which it's going to have to wait for another month. And probably no Algernon Blackwood. I was going to read his occult detective works. I think there's only half a dozen stories. Maybe if I get time, I'll squeeze that in, and I can get my occult detective badge. But I may have to be giving a pass to that event. But I think October is the last month for the big events for the year. I get a time to regroup, to catch up, finish some books that I've started and not completed. I did hear the phrase today, soft DNF, which I think I'm going to start using. But yeah, there's some books that I probably reading as part of an event, didn't get around to completing, that they're here somewhere with a bookmark in them. It's time to get those ticked off for the year and start thinking about next year. Why do we do this as soon as the nights start drawing in? Until next time, bye.